In this video, we're going to be talking about preparing files for the Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. Now, some of you may already know this little tip, but for those of you who are not aware, as I was not aware until I started doing a little fiddling, there is a way to actually create our files and be able to import those files and work with those files quite easily with the Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. Now, one of the drawbacks to the Designer Edition software is there's a bit of a bug. When we import a design, really anything over about 1,000 stones, it really bogs the software down. And now I'm using probably one of the fastest computers currently available because it's brand new. Um, and even on my computer with 32 gigs of RAM, I mean, I really have it decked out. Um, it is still what I would consider slow to respond. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show you a couple of different things you could do on your end as a designer to prepare your SVG files in a certain way that is going to make them easier to work with here in the Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. Now, I should preface this to say that most of our files on EasyStoneTemplates.com are not set up this way. Now, all the files going forward will be, now that we know this little trick, but most of the current files aren't. So what I want to do is I want to show you how to work with the existing files that we have so you have a good understanding of what to expect. Okay? So we're going to bring in an SVG file. First and foremost, we're going to bring in an SVG file here. So we're just going to drag and drop our SVG file from my desktop right here into the Silhouette Studio software. Now, it takes a while to do that. All I did is just drag and drop. It takes a while to appear, and that's because this is a fairly large file. Now, the design itself is only 1,700 stones, so it's not what I would consider a very large design by any stretch. But because of the way we have it set up, you can't see it on screen here, but we have the color separated version, and then we also have the full version. And because of the way the software works, let me go ahead and zoom out here a little bit. I guess I'm zooming in. So let me zoom out here. Because of the way this software works, going forward, when we're creating our SVG file, we're going to eliminate the full version because there's an extra step involved here. We have to get rid of that top piece because we're not going to use that as far as cutting goes. So here's what you need to do. And you have to be patient. That's the key thing. And lots of patience is when I click on this file here, see my hand? I haven't clicked yet, but when I click, watch for the dimensions along the side, along the left edge. I'm going to click right now, and we have to wait and wait and wait and wait. Ah, there comes the dimensions. So what I would expect to happen instantaneously actually takes a bit of time to actually do anything. Now, unless you're using a blazing fast computer, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 times as long on your system. So just be aware of that. Now, again, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click right now, and I'm going to wait and wait and wait and wait for that right click menu to finally appear. Something that I would think would happen instantaneously actually doesn't. It takes a bit of time. Now, here's one point to make, and it frustrates me. You see here, like group is not highlighted. Redo is not highlighted, but everything else is. And as a software developer myself, my expectation would be that if there's an option that's available to me in this list, that I should be able to use that option. But just so you know, if something is grouped, which clearly it is because group is grayed out, so the only option is to ungroup it. Convert to path, make compound path, release compound path is not actually available. If I choose any one of those options, nothing happens, basically, because it's grouped. So it's kind of frustrating that these options are available to me when I can't actually use it. But so at any rate, what we need to do with our files is we have to ungroup, and then we have to right click again, and we have to wait for that menu to appear again. And again, we just have to be patient and ungroup a second time. And then the third time is the trick. Now this is with our files. May not work exactly with other people's files in the same fashion, but if we right click for the third time, wait for the menu to appear and ungroup, and now we just have to be patient. And basically what's going to happen is, rather than having these groups, we're going to have an individual selection. You should see that appear. Now, if you don't see it appear after a bit, you could try right-clicking again and see if that menu will appear again. Now, it won't. You can see I've right-clicked and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and I get no menu. And that's because it's still thinking on the previous task. And then once the previous task is complete, now what you can see here, my menu finally does appear. But what you can see here is every single circle is now selected. Okay, so we're just going to click off somewhere out here in space. And then we're going to select this top portion, and we're going to hit delete. Again, the biggest thing here is we have to be patient, because every step we do is it lags behind. So even making a selection, we think, geez, did I make a selection? Did I not make a selection? We just have to be patient. There, everything is selected. I can now hit my delete key. So you can see just that little bit of prep work on these files. It just takes quite some time because of the lag in these files. Now here's the trick though for the next two parts. What we're going to do here is we're going to select this top part, right click on it, and we're going to choose Make Compound Path. Now for the bottom part, we're going to do the exact same thing. Okay, now what we're going to do here on this bottom template, we're going to cut this. We're going to cut both colors, our SS10 stones. Both colors are going to cut on one template. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut a piece of hot fix tape. We're going to cut it out in the shape of the bow. So we're going to cover up the holes where the bow is, brush in all of our other color stones, then peel that hot fix tape back and brush in the remaining holes. We actually have a video called the plug technique on the website, and maybe I'll even put a description here in this video too, so you can watch how that process actually works. But we're going to right click again, and we're going to choose Make Compound Path. Okay, now when you do that, what you've done now is you've taken hundreds and hundreds of objects and you've made a compound path, and so now we just have two. And watch how quick and easy, when you only have two objects, you can slide this one in, cut it, slide this one away, bring this one over, cut it, and away you go. Okay, so it's much simpler when you have these limited pieces. So now let me just show you here. So what we did, again, trial and error, is we have a new SVG. Okay, so when I bring in our new SVG of the same design, watch what happens. We drag and drop here into our Silhouette Studio software. We then right click, we ungroup, we right click, and we ungroup again. And now I can just slide this one over because I only have two pieces. So I go ahead and cut this template, slide this one over, bring this one over, cut that one, and we're done. So when I want to cut, I select this template, I come over here to cut, and what are we going to cut? We're going to cut this right here. So you see how all those circles are? And then when I want to cut my next template, I'll bring this over. We're going to cut this one, but we have to turn off cutting of this one. So now we're only going to cut this. Okay, and we're looking for that red outline around all those circles. So how simple is that, right? It's much, much more simple doing it this way when you go to export your files. So let's talk about how you're going to export your files. Now, this is pretty much with any software out there. It really doesn't matter what software we're using because it's pretty much going to be the same way. So if you're using WinPC or whatever Rhinestone software you're using, basically the same thing. So what we're going to do here is we've already done our color separations. And the only extra step then is to take this color separation and combine it. And take this color separation and combine it. So now we just have these two objects. Here in CorelDRAW, we just have these two objects instead of 698 objects. We combine it, and you can see here on the bottom we only have one. So now when I go to export this, I'm going to export, I'll just call it my test, for example. Then we'll pop back over here to Silhouette Studio. Let's go ahead and we'll delete that and delete that. Let's get out of our cut style window here. So we're going to pull over my test. We're going to right click. We're going to ungroup. And then we're going to right click and ungroup again. And now we just have two pieces. So we could just bring this down, cut it. Right? We're going to cut that. And then once that's cut, we'll bring this over and we'll cut this. And then we have to turn off the cutting of that. So we're only cutting that one template. So that's going to make working with your larger Rhinestone files much more simple. And of course, we'll be changing our plugin for CorelDRAW that will automate this whole process and create a proper SVG. So it'll be easier to work with when you bring it into the Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. Be much more simple to work with. So anyhow, that's a little tip for you on working with these files and how you can change them so they're easier to work with when you're bringing in files that are quite a bit larger than the software likes. Thanks for watching.